RLTK podcast. Jordan here, chilling with my boy Chris. Chris, what is good?
What's up, big broski?
Yep. Just mourning the Cowboys.
Let's not talk about it.
I mean, gotta be consistent, bro. You know what I'm saying? We was running our mouths, so gotta own it where we gotta own it.
Look,
boys got shellacked.
First of all, we're still the America's team. Okay,
I mean that's true,
but
I'm not denying that.
All the thing I'm saying is that there's nothing to say. Actually, I'm trying to find the words to phrase, but there's nothing to really say. But except,
yeah, we may as well just move on.
I
think it's a good time to introduce our guest. Anyways, first guest, part of the year. My boy Aundre Wright. What's good?
What's up, man? Happy to be here.
Appreciate you, bro. Thanks for jumping on with us.
He's also a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, right.
That's a good question. Why are you not a Cowboys fan?
Because y'all like to lose. And I'm like, why haven't you guys fired Dak yet or traded Dak yet?
Yeah, Mike McCarthy's got to go and Dak Prescott's got to go.
First of all, Dak is all we have. If we get rid of Dak, who else do we have? We have nobody.
Bro, we need to take a risk in that draft. That's all I'm saying.
We've been taking risks. It's been failing. So let's stick with Dak. Let's pour into Dak, and let's see what happens then. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I feel you. But hey, we wanted to, like we told you last time, we wanted to start getting on more guests and having more people that we know of influence who care about young people, care about influencing them for the sake of the gospel, and care about building things in our communities that actually develop our communities and like deal with the least of these, like the scripture says. And so Aundre runs an organization or is partnered in running an organization called Adonai AZ. And they do some incredible work in the foster care system. And so obviously we want to get into that today, but just for everybody that's kind of meeting you for the first time, like, what's your story, man? I mean, obviously we know you, but they don't. So, yeah, where do you come from? Who are you? How did you get here?
Yeah, so I like to say that I'm originally from Rancho Cucamonga, California. I've grown up in different parts of the valley, but that's just where I would consider home. But moved out to Phoenix roughly 11 years ago. Went to GCU, got involved with some inner city youth ministry out in South Phoenix. And so really just through that process and through an internship with this guy named Dave.
Shout out to Dave.
Yeah, shout out to Dave.
OG.
But yeah, just was working with Dave, and during a summer internship, really just felt a calling from the Lord to start a ministry for working with kids that were couch surfing, that were in his program. But then as I started to do research as well, started to see that there was a huge need for kids that were aging out of foster care. And so we kind of talked to Dave about that and prayed, had another friend of mine that we started a initial nonprofit with, and really started I would say one of the state's first models of transitional housing for kids that are aging out of foster care. And so that was in 2017. And then recently started a different company where I co-founded and I'm now the CEO. So that's Adonai, but we essentially run transitional housing for kids that are aging out of foster care. We got a contract with the Department of Child Safety. So we have 4 homes in Phoenix and 2 in Tucson, and
dope.
Still growing. So really a lot to be grateful for there.
So for somebody who like is unaware of what's happening in the foster care system, and obviously this applies not just to Arizona, and I know Arizona, from my understanding, is like one of the more challenging states when it comes to foster care across the country.
Yep.
But for somebody who like doesn't know a ton about the system or what's happening in it, like what are some things that you would want to that person to know to kind of introduce them to the foster care system?
Yeah, so I would say there's I think a lot of people give a bad rap to the state and how, certain departments are trying to, I think, solve a problem, which is, how do we solve child neglect and various, child abuse and things like that. But I think what I would probably offer a scope into people when it comes to foster care is that a lot of kids, when they age out of the system, really don't have the proper resources. So they may end up, I think the state's doing the best job that they can with that, but there's a lot of complexities to doing the work, when kids are in, more of your congregate care or traditional style group homes. And so I think it kind of seems like, certain group homes really do support their kids in the way that it, like, teaching them life skills and things like that. But more often than not, I would say that a lot of kids just aren't really adequately prepared to really transition into adulthood. And so that's where I think that, we can meet that need. But I think a lot of kids are, I think just as of recent, a lot of kids really also don't have the skills, but really there's like no like funding. I think that there's just a lack of manpower to really get, to really support those youth as they age out as well. So, so those are things that, that we're working on at Adonai and trying to solve problems in real time.
Yeah. Was there like a moment where you were like, I don't know, kind of like in that world, and maybe you saw something or maybe something happened and it just clicked in your mind like, yo, this is what I'm going to do? Or was it just like a slow incremental burn? Or was it like always something that was there for you?
Yeah, I would say, I think, I mean, I've been through a lot over the last 6 or 7 years with this work. And so I think that I have various stories that really confirm my calling and just my place in working with foster youth. But I think, probably top level, I would say, like, I just really am compassionate and moved when, you're working with the kid and you see, or young adult, but you're working with these people and you say, hey, you were here when we first met, and, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, you're blossoming, you're on your own. Like, you really have those life skills to really deal with whatever, comes about your way. And so, I mean, like I said, I have various stories of youth that have came back and said, hey, like, if it weren't for you, I would probably be homeless. I would probably be in jail or doing some drugs or something like that. And so, I think for me, it's really just offering a safe space for kids to really fail. And I think that that's where, as you're trying to transition into adulthood, I think kids really should have the opportunity to fail, and that really people that are in their corner really should be champions of grace.
That's good. So I like that you said you're giving them the room to fail. So being in these kids' lives, what is something that you see that they really struggle with transitioning to the adulthood?
Yeah, I would say it's various things. I mean, I think certain kids are dealing with past trauma. Certain kids are dealing with the I think just their worry and anxieties about what does it mean to be an adult and having to deal with the responsibilities that come with that. I think there's certain kids that really don't really have any family. Sometimes in certain stories, their family, they may be in foster care because their family's dead or their family just completely abandoned them. And so I think there's a lot of things that kids are processing. And so it's just really trying to figure out what are those problems that the kids are processing, and what are they worried about, and really trying to meet them where they are.
Yeah, I like that, because what's interesting about Gen Z is that I see them put in way more work than millennials and what we've done growing up. It's very interesting to me watching them stressing about, they call it adulting. I hate adulting. I'm about to go do some adulting right now. And it's like the stress level of becoming this thing called being an adult, being a grown up. I see it's more stressful on them than it's ever been for me or for any other millennial. It's like, when I see them do their homework or they're stressing over school, it's like, I've never done that. I skipped school and I never done homework a day in my life. But, you know what I'm saying? They just walked me. But it's like, for Gen Z, it's like they stress over these things, the things I've never stressed over, never really cared about. they stress over it. They don't sleep at night. They put in the extra work, extra hours. They think about who they're going to bank with, their credit score, the decisions they got to make, and they deal with their trauma, their past issues. Like, it's just different. And so I like that you say that you give them room to fail. And I think that's something that we fail to do as the more advanced age, is that we don't give them actual room to fail, because it's like, well, if I made it through, you can do it. There's no excuses. Well, it's like, you don't live in the type of culture that I live in mentally. You know what I'm saying? So especially dealing with social media, it's like, do you see social media really impacting the kids that you deal with?
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up. I would say I think that the reason for that, in terms of Gen Z wanting to engage in things like that, I think is really just because of where our culture is right now. And so I think we see a lot of things on social media that push for, the grind culture, which I mean, something from me too, right?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
But I would say I think that a lot of kids these days, or young adults, in that generation, I think really are a product of a culture that is pushing for a lot. I think there's a lot of chaos and a lot of things that have been kind of going on, especially since COVID. And there's just been various things, and so I think that's why kids kind of have to wake up to what's going on and kind of have their things in order to just be prepared for the future.
What would you say the differences are between because I think there is a difference between, and you'll confirm this, like kids in the system and then normal kids. You know what I'm saying? Like what are the differences that you're seeing between those two groups of people, and how does that affect how you engage or approach them?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I would say I think youth in foster care are more resilient than normal kids, right? So if you hear some of these kids' stories, I mean, even still to this day, I'm like, I can't even fathom going through what you've gone through, and so I would say, I think that, these kids in foster care are more resilient. I think that they're aware of a reality of hardship and sin, maybe, and they can't really articulate it that way, but I would say that they're more aware of how broken the world really is. And so I think that informs them in the way that they see things, that informs the way that they interact with people and engage with people. And so, and I would say, when it comes to a lot of these kids in foster care, I think that they give me the strength that I need, as I'm working with them, because engaging with their stories, I think sometimes is challenging. And, again, obviously running a business in addition to that, and trying to make all the pieces work for a social service business, it's difficult, but it gives me that inspiration to keep going, because I'm like, hey, so-and-so, their mother just died, and they're still saying, hey, like they're waking up the next day, and obviously they, they're processing things, but they are able to make it through that, and are still able to be hopeful about what does life have to offer,
Yeah, that's good. And you, so being in the trenches with the kids, and you say this is what you feel that you're called to. What is something that you see that God is doing within these kids?
Yeah, I would say I think that the Lord is softening their hearts, because a lot of the things that as we engage with the kids nowadays, like a lot of them are choosing to, maybe escape with drugs. And I would say that's not all the case, but, sometimes they're choosing to, maybe escape with drugs, or they're choosing to escape with just various, vices. Right. But I would say, I think that I see the Lord really softening their hearts towards him, and really as we talk about some of the things that Gen Z is trying to process of suffering, right?
Yeah.
Suffering and just truth, and reality and all these things. I think the Lord is really softening their hearts to be able to have people really engage with them at that level. So that's how I would say.
Bro, that's so good. Because I think a lot of us don't understand experiencing. I want to dive into this a little bit. Experiencing the world does harden your heart, right? Experiencing depravity, experiencing evil, like not just seeing it, but experiencing it for yourself. And like, because we all have been through something that has shifted the way we have perceived something. We have experienced something that has shifted the way we think what ought to be fair. And it's like we recognize that the world isn't fair, the world isn't just, the world isn't right. But yet I desire for right. I desire for fairness. I want my life to be good. But it seems as though there are systems and things in place that takes these things from me. And so it's like the world makes your heart harden.
Yep.
It has no choice but to do that. And so I like the fact that you give them room to fail. And I think the room is grace, but also being active is love, right? It's like, I'm gonna give you room to make mistakes. I'm gonna give you room to make decisions and to see why it's not good. But also, I'm gonna love you through the process of you making those decisions. And so it's like I love that about what you do. It's like, because the world is not going to give that to them. The world doesn't show that type of grace, right? The world doesn't show that type of love, and the world doesn't reward wise decisions. It rewards foolish ones. And so it's like, it's very good that you give those kids spaces, especially the ones that has been through that type of trauma, has been neglected and denied what they should be given, And so I think that's very interesting. Like, what do y'all think about that? Like, do y'all think there's some truth in the idea that the world has no choice but to make the heart harden?
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah, I think so. I think just the nature of the brokenness of existence and the evil that exists in it and the harm that we do to each other. Like you said, Aundre, like these kids have seen evil in ways that we probably never will. Unless we like join the army or World War III breaks out or we end up homeless or something, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think when you experience that kind of suffering, the only way to deal with it is to harden your heart.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Is to harden yourself. That's the way that you survive, so to speak.
Yeah, that's good.
And even like, as I think about it, like from a mental health standpoint, like when people experience trauma, they disassociate. And that's how your brain actually survives. So you disconnect from the experience. That's why some people, when they have traumatic experiences, they often talk about it as like they left their body. That's your brain intentionally moving you out of your body so that it can protect you. And so I think there is like a level of self-protection in the hardening of the heart, right? But the problem is when you harden the heart, it's not like you can harden the heart from one thing and say soft in another area.
Yeah.
When you harden towards all things.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? And so that's the challenge. And so the difficulty about that is recognizing that and then doing something to soften it again. But then the question becomes, why would I do that if somebody's just going to hurt me again?
Yeah.
Or if I find myself in similar circumstances to the circumstances I found myself in when I originally got hurt, right? I'm going to continue to harden my heart. And so, yeah, I think it's a challenging dilemma because of the world that we live in. I mean, I think Christians harden their hearts all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Harden their hearts towards other people of other faiths, harden their hearts towards people like LGBTQ people and all those different types of things. And once again, that's not me making a truth claim in terms of we should just wholesale affirm everything. That's me saying, like, I think in our religious zeal or whatever you want to call it. I don't know.
Mhm.
We, or maybe even better yet, in our fear, we put up walls and harden our hearts towards groups of people.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like the hardening of the heart is a human problem.
Yeah. Facts. And I think you're pointing out
which is biblical, by the way.
Yeah, facts. But I think you're pointing out the labor that Christians are called to do, the burden work of tending the
To not
heart.
harden your heart.
To not harden your heart, but also not just to harden your own heart, but also to till the ground of other people's hearts. You know, because when you have conversations with people, when you have conversations with the kids, you know, you run across people that have been through some crazy things, man. You know, almost experiencing death, or maybe they have experienced death, or experienced betrayal to the highest degree. You know, and you're called to be in their life. That's crazy, bro. Like, you're called to be in these kids' lives and to work the ground in their heart, to soften it, where the seed that's been given to you by God, so it can be planted and then grow. You know, what does Paul say, right? We do the planting, but God does the growing, right? There's a labor of being a Christian with the human heart, right? We're called to till the ground of the heart so the seed can be planted, so God can do the work that he can do the growing, he can do the revealing, he can do the showing, right? It's like this is the co-workers of with Christ is that, hey, I am calling you to serve this person, to be in their lives, to listen to them, to go where they are. This is where they are, right? They're not going to come to the church. They're not coming to the Bible study. They don't want to hear nothing about that. They want to see how you live, right? And so I think there's a country saying, it says the best sermons are not preached but lived. And so there's something about living a life that is loving and caring and acceptable, which is perceived foolish. That's what's crazy to me sometimes. It's like, you know, when you try to show love, you know, the world's like, bro, I wouldn't do that. Why do you do that? Why do you forgive? Well, because I was forgiven. Why do you love? Well, because I was loved. And so you reciprocate what's been done to you and you give it to them, you know? And so it's just interesting to me how we're called to do that type of work to make the heart soften. Like, I think that's why Jesus talks about, you know, the parable of the seed, you know, and the different soils that you deal with, and what the seed itself, what the seed goes through, you know, how it be choked out by the world or things of that nature. So it's just interesting, you know, it's like dealing with these kids. I can see you going through that with them.
Yeah, you know what's so interesting too? So I've been kind of parking in Jonah lately. And so I think as a kid, I was taught that Jonah, like it was taught to me as if, like, hey, you know, you got to follow you got to follow God's, you know, call, or listen to the Lord, or else he's gonna like put you in a big fish, you know, like that's like it was really about like following the Lord's direction, right? But I think that with Jonah, you miss a big part of the story, right? So I think like, because again, it was, to me, I was raised as, it was all about, you know, Jonah's disobedience.
Yeah.
But that's not really what the story is about, right? And I think, you know, when we get into this question, we talk about you know, as some of our kids and just a lot of people with Gen Z, like the question is, why does God allow suffering, you know? And so I think, you know, with the story of Jonah, we see that the Lord was actually, you know, acting and moving and calling Jonah to go and tell and tell those people that you should stop sinning, right? Like that, like he was trying to essentially cast judgment on them. But I think the thing that's even way more profound is that, and the whole reason of why Jonah didn't want to go to them in the first place was because God was trying to offer, like, ultimately was like, Jonah knew that God was going to show mercy on those people, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think for me, that's what's so profound. I think when we talk about the Lord and the work that we do, it's like, yeah, like I've been forgiven as well. And the Lord shows mercy to me daily, you know, and I want that same thing to be shown towards you. I want you to know about how good God is, that it's not, you know, that it's not all about, you know, judgment and what you can and can't do. Like, you know, but he is holy, of course.
Yeah.
But I think that that's what, you know, that those are the things that I feel like really should be highlighted is really, let's talk about the Lord's grace and mercy. Like,
Bro, facts.
Why is that, like, why should that be offered to anybody?
Yeah. Facts.
You know? Facts.
You know, bro, no cap, because it's like, I think to really understand mercy, I think this is why Jesus said it's like, you know, it's easier to love a friend and it's hard to love an enemy. But I think to truly understand love, to truly understand mercy, is to love those that you think that doesn't deserve it, to show mercy to those that you think that don't deserve it. Because I think once we show mercy to those that is our enemies, once we show mercy to people that we think that don't deserve it, then I think we can understand the mercy of God itself, right? Then we can understand the cross. The cross is merciful. You know, it's crazy, bro. This what the cross symbolizes, but it symbolizes mercy. You know, it really does, because there is no way to get to God. Like, if you, as far as the human mind can process it, there is no way we can get to him. And so I think we have to understand what the cross symbolizes. And speaking of symbolizing things, what do you think that the foster care system and what you do, what do you think it symbolizes for the kids?
Yeah, I think what I do for the kids, I think it symbolizes just that the Lord cares about your story, right? And God is, I mean, time and time again, we see it throughout the Old Testament that God says that I'm a father to the fatherless. Like, I am, and he also holds Israel accountable for like he holds he holds Israel accountable for, you know, dismissing the orphan, you know. And so I think that is where the things that I do, that ultimately, like, I think I'm an instrument of God's grace in their lives, you know, because I think the work that we do it's challenging, and, you know, to show up over and over again, like, I really don't think that I could without without God's grace. You know,
100%.
But yeah, that's what I think. I think it's really just the Lord just showing that he's gracious and he's compassionate and he's willing to enter, you know, to the point of you bring up the cross, like he's willing to enter into the mess with you, you know. And I think that he does that not just through the word but also, you know, through community and people that are agents of Christ that also are in the foster care system and doing that type of work as well. So, you know, I really think it's just being instruments of God's grace in that.
Yeah.
So I think this is the thing that I was thinking about a little bit earlier. How do you, as we were talking about, like, hardening your heart, how do you keep your heart soft working in that space? Because obviously I know that there's a ton of challenges, and I think this is relevant to the audience too, because there might be people that are involved with foster care kids or are thinking about being involved or just involved with the youth that are going through a ton of challenges or have had really traumatic experiences that have shaped them in a way that makes them just difficult to deal with if we keep it a stack. So how do you keep your heart soft towards those kids as you walk with them through the challenges? And then, like, you know, I'm sure there are situations where they, you know, make you the object of their ire or anger or blame. So what do you do?
Yeah, I would say I got a holy battery, right? Like, and what I mean by that is like it's really the spirit through me, because you know, like I'm from the south side of the Lord's of God's kingdom. You know,
I'm
what
dead.
I mean?
You're stupid, bro.
You know,
you're so dumb.
And so, like, you know, some of these young adults, like, they just, you know, sometimes they want to test you, you know?
Yes.
And I'm like, man, I love tests. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a perfect opportunity to show myself approved, you know? So, you know, there's but you know, honestly, like there's kids that really have like really deep traumatic issues. And so I think being aware of that, it's really not personal, you know. That's like good. it's not about me, you know. It's not about how I feel today, really, you know. It's like the work it's all about the other, right? And the other is ultimately those youth. And sometimes I think they rely on the strength of their staff to get through the day. And so for me, I'm like, I'm you know, a flawed human being from the south side of God's kingdom. And you know it's not easy, but
I'm using that moving forward, bro.
It's gonna be on the shirt.
But yeah, I really think it's just the Lord. Like, I think, you know, day in, day out, sometimes it's challenging because, you know, you're dealing with you know, kids trying to, you know, come at you for various things. And it's like, dude, like, this had nothing to do with me. So like, I don't know why, you know, you're cussing me out and things like that. But, you know, I'll say over time, you definitely build thicker skin,
Yeah,
you know, to deal with the punches. But for me, I just don't take things personal. You know, I'm like, hey, you can cuss me out today, and tomorrow I'm gonna be here saying, yo, how can I still help? You know,
That's good, bro.
And ultimately, I think that the way that I do that is really just by the grace of the Lord, because I see myself as that kid, right? Like I was an orphan, right? Like spiritually speaking, you know, but you know, I would say that I think that the Lord is continuing to pursue me daily, because I think through various ways, maybe it would be probably implied that I'm cussing out the Lord, you know?
yeah.
Keeping it a stack. No, that's good, bro. It makes me yeah, I just think about like one of our values is you know, just creating that space for people. Well, I would say it this way: instead of being fearful, being curious. So with young people, like, or students, whatever, when you're engaging them and perhaps they test you, right? Or they say something that you could take personally, or they say something that could make you fear about decisions that perhaps they're making. Instead of seeing that as a reason to tighten up and try and maybe behavior modify and get them to act the way that you want them to act because you think that's what's best for them. Perhaps it's an opportunity, an invitation into something deeper. Well, why do you see the world that way? Why do you think that's the best decision for you to make? You know, like, how did you come to that conclusion? And so, like, getting underneath that, like, yo, you're mad and I'm not sure what I've done to make you so angry. So is there something else going on? You know, asking those types of questions that really give that space, right, for them to maybe process the thing they need to process or say the thing that they need to say. But also then you're being that champion of grace too, like that you talked about, which I think is really cool. How do you, because I know you mentioned earlier and it really struck me, like giving them space to fail. And I think this is really important too, because I think this is something that needs to be offered to all young people, not just young people who are in the foster care system. I think we're willing to give people who have been through adverse stories more room, when I actually think there just needs to be more room for everybody in general. But like, how do you give that space for them to fail? And how maybe how have you seen that be beneficial, and when have you seen it not be beneficial?
Yeah. So I would say I'm pretty traditional. So I'm you know, I'm about, you know, rules. I understand you know, why they are there, and why, you know, it's good for just humans in general to have rules. But the way that I like to frame it is that it's more so expectations, right? So I think that's probably a better way to frame the things that we have for our young adults, and just in general how you should have, like, adults should be expected to not act like children, but also, especially as you're transitioning from a child to an adult, there's unique things that I think you're kind of in this like, I mean, it's probably not the best way to say it, but like this already, but like not yet kind of tension.
I got you.
Where you're trying to transition from being an adult, but also or transition into being an adult, but really like you're still a child and you haven't gone through the experiences that most adults have, And so I think really it's just giving them the space to say, hey, like, you're definitely an adult and you should, be accountable for your actions and those things, but it's not the end of the world if you fail, and really, I think what we do with our young adults is really, I try to spend time with them. And the reality is they know that the things that they did wrong. So I'm not going to continue to like beat them over the head of what you did wrong, what I'm going to say is like, hey, let's go to like, let's grab a bite to eat or something like that.
Yeah.
And we'll just talk what's going on,
Yeah, that's good.
And the reality is a lot of these young adults, and I think, in our homes, but then also just young adults in general, like they can actually figure out how to solve their problem by trial and error, so it's not like,
say more about that.
Yeah. Like I would say, I think, if I get a speeding ticket or if I'm driving fast, I get a speeding ticket and I feel the weight of, obviously dealing or getting pulled over and dealing with the weight of having to, see a judge or pay a fine or all those things. It's like, okay, I definitely don't want to pay $400, for a ticket.
Let me not do that again.
Yeah, let me not do that again, and so I think, I think that in general that it's really an opportunity for people to like learn from their mistakes themselves. Like they don't necessarily need to be having someone, tell them, hey, you did wrong over and over again. Like you already dealt with the situation and you should know, hey, if you drive fast, like you're going to get a ticket, or you're going to get pulled over and you're going to have to go through all these things to rectify the situation. And so I think that's what I mean, that just really having the space to fail and really creating spaces for those young adults to figure things out themselves, because that will ultimately give them the tools to deal with the major things that come up in life later, So that's how I would say that.
No, that's good, bro. I really like that. Yeah, I think it's just the foster care system, man, is just challenging. I just think about it. I think about like our state and all the things that young people are going through, and how under-resourced they are, like you said, how much help that they do need, and the fact that perhaps, like you said, they're not as mature, so they don't perceive situations the same way that other kids would perceive them or the same way that you would perceive them. And so I don't know, just feel kind of burdened by it right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, dang. So like if there was somebody who was listening right now or standing in front of you, or let's say there's a room of like 1,000 people and they're all attentive to you, and you get the opportunity to communicate to them why they should engage in the foster care system and why they should engage youth coming out of this type of background, like what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think the reality is a lot of these kids have the risk of being I mean, they are the future, right? But I would say that a lot of these kids have a risk of potentially being homeless, right? So I think there's some statistic that says like roughly 40% of all people that are homeless currently have been in the foster care system in some form or fashion. And so, and I think that the reality is that we can actually prevent that by really stepping in and helping these kids understand what does it mean to be an adult and teaching them life skills and, helping them with jobs and all that. But I would just, encourage people to care about foster care. I mean, especially as a Christian, like that's what the Lord calls us to. And I don't think that it's, hey, everyone, just stop what they're doing and jump in into starting, a foster home or things like that. Um, but I think it's important because these kids are often forgotten, you know, um, and especially like we just recently did Christmas. Um, we had a Christmas party and did some Christmas gifts and things like that. But a lot of these kids, as they age out, once they turn 21, DCS is pretty much just like there's not enough like adequate funding for them to continue like helping the young adults out. And so at 21, it's like, if you don't have family or a community that you can be with, ultimately Christmas is not going to be the same like everyone. So as most of us, we're celebrating with families during Christmas time, and it's about gifts and presents and community and all the above. A lot of these kids, once they turn 21, there's just nothing, and so and I would say, like, just kind of creating opportunities for that is what's important. But yeah, I would definitely encourage people to jump in the space and try to look at volunteering to help a youth or mentoring them, or donating to local nonprofits that are doing really good solid work, because again, these kids are often forgotten. And I definitely think that it should be something that we really all can make a difference in.
Yeah. Is there a is there any websites that the people can go to donate or figure out how to become a mentor or serve in this space?
Yeah, so there's various other like nonprofits that I would recommend in Phoenix. We're currently not a 501c3 yet. We're working on that probably later towards this year. But I would say, to check us out and what we're doing, it would just be adonaiaz.com. And you can just check us out and connect with us and see the work that we're doing. We love to show tours of our homes as well. And really just engaging or getting people to engage our youth inside and outside of the home. So really creating, other alternative experiences outside of Phoenix, taking them to California and things like that. So those are things that we're hoping to do in the future. But yeah, that's the way that you could really, tap in with us there. So
yeah, that's good. I like it's dealing with Gen Z and dealing with young people. It's difficult because I feel like we're in the middle, when it comes to age. And when I'm out doing my thing, I meet people that have lived life they live life way farther than I have, and they experienced way more, and they're in their 60s and 70s. And a lot of them, man, they're set in their ways. They're set mentally, they're set emotionally. They think they have figured out what they have figured out. It's, how do I say this? Like, they really understand depravity. They really understand how this world is. So when they pass down this wisdom, it's more of like wisdom of depravity. This is how the world is, man. And if you don't suck it up, if you don't learn how to survive, like the old saying, only the strong survives. Like they get it. They understand this world. It's like almost in a sense of Solomon when he wrote Ecclesiastes. It's he understood despair because he understood that he's going to die, and everything he worked so hard for, everything he toiled, because he questioned, what does a man gain for all his toil? He questioned that. And so this wisdom of the depravity of this world, and the corruption of our nature, they understand it. That's what I'm trying to say. And the youth really don't. They don't understand it. They just hate it. Right? They hate what has been done to them. They hate this world they're born in. They hate it, but they don't understand it. And I think for us that is in the middle, where we have experienced depravity, but yet we're also trying to understand this world we live in. We have gathered some type of knowledge of something. And I think that we have the opportunity to to stop that before they get there. You get what I'm saying? Before it's like, it's almost in the sense of before it's too late, in a sense. And so it's like the space that you're in, it's, I don't think a lot of people understand how beautiful it is, you know, and how it's actually helping them become this place of a softened heart. Because when I think of a soft heart, I think of childlike things. I think of a sense of innocence, purity, in a sense, right? It's like, because the world can make you an adult, but it can make you a very difficult adult to live with, because the things that you have experienced, and a lot of times there's no room for grace when you're an adult because you got stuff to do. Hey man, I've been through that. Get over that. Let's go. We got stuff to do. It is what it is. That's life. That's life. And there's no room to, hey, let's flush this out. There's room to grow in this, and let's save this heart, because this heart ultimately is the downfall of man, pride. And so I think, you know, the space you're in is very beautiful, man. I think that more people need to know about this, because it's like, they are the future. They are. And no matter whatever Gen Z do, or Gen A, Gen Alpha, which is the next generation, they're going to blame us for something. You know, they're going to point the finger and say, why did you do this? Why did you think this was right? Why did you deny me this love, the grace that I needed? Because now I have a hate in my heart because of what you did. Like, we're responsible for some things here. And so just having this discussion with you, I think it's eye opening. And I hope that it's eye opening for those who are watching as well. And so I think it's very beautiful, man, that you have created a structure for kids to come and they can actually learn how to feel safe again.
Yeah, it's good. I think too, something that Gen Z struggles with is resilience. And so it's interesting that you mentioned resilience as something that kids in the foster care system have learned, because I wonder if that's something that they have to offer normal kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what it means to overcome. This is what it means to be resilient. This is what it means to move past difficult experiences in your life.
Yeah.
And so I think about that in the context of like a church youth group, or, you know, a family or whatever else, like that being offered as a gift to other people in the family and giving them an opportunity to contribute. Like, yo, how did you overcome that? How do you continue to overcome? So it does take an incredible amount of resilience to go through the things that they've been through. And I think, you know, that's valuable, man. Like, and they can contribute that, or be allowed to contribute that. Cause I think oftentimes young people in that space are just kind of seen as burdens, right? Like something you got to put up with, something you got to deal with. You know, I'm rescuing them. And like, we're forgetting in that process that God also has something to give to you. God has also has something to teach you.
Yeah.
And grow you in and encourage you in, right? When the rich and poor come together, the Lord gives them both sight.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Ooh.
And so we just assume in the West that whoever has the most, you know, whoever looks the best, whoever, you know, has the biggest job, like those are the people that we should listen to. And actually scripture says quite the opposite. Right. And so
come on, Pastor.
There's much.
Yeah.
There's much for kids in that space and people who have been through great hardship and suffering to teach us. And we should listen to them. And I think if we did, maybe we could have better relationships. Maybe they would trust us more. Maybe we could help them. And maybe, just maybe, they would help us. You know?
That's good.
Appreciate you coming on, bro.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for gracing us with all that insight and wisdom. Super dope.
Yes.
I feel like I learned some stuff today. Thank you.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yes, man.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, another episode in the books. We appreciate you guys. As we always say, this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. If you got questions, you got comments, you got concerns, you got anything you want to bring up to us, you know where to find us. Shoot us a comment. Reach out to us on social, email us, whatever, and we can chop. We love you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.